In today's episode, I'm going to complete the testimony for day 2, which includes testimony from John O'Keefe, the victim, the Boston police officer victim. His mom, Margaret O'Keefe, what did she have to say? I'm going to recap it right after this introduction. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, or evening, or whenever it is you're watching this. I'm Rebecca, host of Crafting and Crime Daily. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It's free. Anyway, what did Margaret O'Keefe have to say on day 2 of the testimony in the Karen Reed case? We're going to talk about that today. Also, the digital forensic guy took the stand briefly, and we hear from another firefighter paramedic. So I'm going to go over all of that in today's episode. Karen Reed is on trial for the second-degree murder, which is not intentional, the unintentional murder of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, back in January of 2022. After they had a night of drinking, they go to over to a house party. He gets out. After that, it's who knows what happened. At this point, I have no idea. Prosecution says she backed up and hit him. Defense says she drove off. Somehow he went into that house, either got bit by a dog or beat up, and then left to die in the snow. So which one is it? I don't know. This jury is going to have. I'm just seeing a hung jury in the future here. Just another one. This has already been tried once to a hung jury, because there's some really good lawyers on both sides of the fence here. So Margaret O'Keefe took the stand. I don't know how old she is. Got to be in her 70s, but she looks pretty darn good. She was asked how long she has been married. She's married to John O'Keefe Jr. And when she was asked how long she's been married, she's like, too long. I thought it was pretty funny. 53 years. That's a long freaking time. 53 years. So they had 3 children: Kristen, John, and Paul. Kristen had a couple of children. They were ages 3 and 6 when she found out she had a cancerous tumor, and 5 months later was deceased. Oh, so sad. And 2 months after that, her husband, Steve, has this heart attack and passes away. So now they've got these 2 kids, 3 and 6 years old. Patrick is now 14. The other one is now 17. And I listened so carefully. I slowed, because I was listening at double speed. I slowed it way down. I couldn't understand what they said the daughter's name was, but it doesn't really matter. She's 17 now. Those kids, what they have been through. Anyway, they have 4 guardians at the time. John was the primary guardian, John O'Keefe. So he was basically took over as their parent. Then her, Margaret, and then Steve, the father of the children's brothers. Apparently at the time they were married, didn't have any kids, but it ended up being John. John was singled and didn't have any kids. He decided he would do it. So she was asked to describe John, and she starts out with the Boston police thing. And he's like, well, what about, what was he like outside of that? And she says, well, he was a sports enthusiast, and he was really good with kids. So what happened on the day of the alleged murder, January 29th, 2022? She got a call about 6:15, 6:30 from Carrie Roberts, and letting her know that John had been found in a snowbank. And she said, Carrie told her, I don't know what happened. We found him, they're taking him to the hospital. So she said, I'm going to come pick you up. And Margaret said, no, it's not necessary. We can drive. We both have 4-wheel drives, which is different than what Carrie said, that they didn't have 4-wheel drives. She said, yeah, we had 4-wheel drives, but she insisted she wanted to come get us. So she came and got them. So now there's the 3 of them in the car. Carrie's driving. John O'Keefe Jr., the father of John O'Keefe, the Boston police officer, and Margaret. And she said it took a little while to get to the hospital because of the blizzard conditions. It was kind of treacherous. I think Carrie's testimony, she said she slid out a couple of times. Yeah, that's harrowing. It really is. So they go to Good Samaritan Hospital. When they get to the hospital now, Margaret is saying her niece worked at the hospital. So she met up with her niece. Her niece puts them in this room where they stay until someone comes and gets them to come down and see John. So they go down to the emergency room to see John. As they enter the emergency room, to her left is Karen Reed. And Karen sees her and hollers out, I think she called her Peg. Peg. She says, "Is he dead? Peg, is he dead?" And Margaret says, "Well, what is she doing here?" And they're saying that she's here for a psychiatric evaluation. So they just ignore her and they just keep going to see John. And she describes briefly what John looked like to her. But she did at that point go back and reiterate a conversation she'd had earlier when Carrie Roberts had called her, where she had asked Karen what happened, and Karen said that she dropped him off at a party and left him there with no other details. Left him inside the house, outside, no details. Then they returned home. She went home with her son, Paul. Paul drove her home. The father went home. I forget who took him home. Anyway, so she gets home, but they didn't really go home. She's saying home because now it's her home. She went over to John's house because the two kids were coming home from school. She now lives there where John used to live. So she does call it home. So she went home to John's house. And the kids had just gotten home when Karen Reed and her father knocked on the door. They're there to get something. They have to pick up something. So she was really out. So she lets them go upstairs. They go up to John's room. She goes, I don't even know when she left. I don't know what she took. I don't know. But she didn't hug her. She didn't offer any condolences, which is not really what Karen Reed says. Patrick was there. Patrick was beside himself, upset about what had happened to John. And Patrick had spent the night at someone else's house the night before. So now Margaret is the children's primary caregiver. So she's now living in that home with her husband, John Jr., and the two kids. So at this point, the prosecution wanted to bring in a couple of clips. So we had to excuse the jury because there was some argument about the clips. So finally, the defense withdrew their objection to the first clip. And I'm going to show that to you. Both clips involve, this is the problem. She should never have opened her mouth to Dateline, 2020, Investigation Discovery, all these different places where she gave interviews and participated in documentaries, because now it's going to come back to haunt her. Here is the clip that I want to show you.
Hey,
Yes, please.
Your Honor, I'd like to introduce clip number 4.
They had pulled into the driveway before me, so I was presuming she saw my cracked ceiling. I was thinking, did you hit my son? I could sense from her that she was looking at me very warily. And then when John's nephew came home, I just wanted to see him and squeeze him. I don't know, it was quite uncomfortable. I said, Dad, I went upstairs to the master bedroom. I said, I think I need to leave. I said, I think John's mother thinks I did something to John.
So The second clip was not shown. The judge says, I want to review that clip and I want to think about it, because in this clip, Karen is describing an event Karen says happened in the kitchen when she arrived that day. And she says that Margaret leaned over the kitchen counter and, well, let me show you. I'll show you the clip. Here it is.
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think he looks like he got hit by a car. He looks like he got hit by a car.
Okay, so tell me.
So the jury did not get to see that clip yet, but they will, because the judge came back the next day and said, yesterday morning, and said, yes, you can show that, because then she had reviewed it and she said, yes, you can show it. But Margaret denies that ever happening. She says it never happened. That didn't happen. Okay. Then we get Nicholas Guarino, the Massachusetts State Police officer, who is now assigned to the district attorney's office, where he is full-time doing digital forensics, cell phone extractions, and in some cases analyzing the data that he extracts. He says it depends on the case. Sometimes he just extracts the data and gives it to the police officers. Sometimes he actually analyzes it. In this case, he extracted John O'Keefe's phone initially. I'm going to put this in the timeline. He receives John O'Keefe's phone and Karen Mead's phone at 7:30 p.m. the day of the murder. Now, the alleged murder happened, very early morning hours. At 7:30 that night, those phones are turned over to this digital forensics guy by Michael Proctor. So I want to put anything Michael Proctor does in parens. Yeah. But they don't have a passcode for John's phone, either phone, really. Neither one came with a passcode. But so they just put John O'Keefe's phone aside in a secure location until they could get the passcode. And they eventually did get the passcode and were able to do some extractions. And then when they got Karen's cell phone, it was the type of phone that the software at the time could not, without a passcode. There is a way you can do brute force. They call it brute force, where you can put it in and it can look for a passcode. And if it's a 4-digit passcode, it could take a few hours to a few weeks. If it's a 6-digit passcode, it could take up to 35 years to figure that out. So, but in July of 2022, there was a software update, and then they were able to break the code and get into it and extract her phone. Yeah. So the next, and he didn't analyze either one of them. He just extracted it, and that was given to someone else to analyze. So we're going to hear from someone else later on, and this guy may be back on the stand because he said he extracted and analyzed a lot of phones. So there may be other phones involved. So we're going to see him back on the stand. Then we have Keith Whitley, a firefighter paramedic who was called to the murder scene to pick up Karen. It was a Signal 12 call. And Signal 12 means there's someone that needs to be psychiatrically held, whether they go by on their own or they go by force. They have to go. I practice law in Florida, and we called it the Baker Act. That's where you take someone who has been determined that they are going to either harm themselves or harm others imminently. You take them and have them put into the hospital for a 72-hour period of observation, or until such time as they can be evaluated by a psychiatrist and deemed not to be a danger to themselves or others. It sounds like they got her evaluated pretty quickly, because she obviously goes over with her father to the house where Margaret and her husband are and the kids, and goes up to John's bedroom to get something. So this guy, now I gotta say, he says it's a small town, and I believe it because I feel like everybody knows everybody. Because at one time this guy says, oh, everybody knew John, and that John was taking care of kids that weren't his, and he knew he lives around the corner from Carrie Roberts. Like, so he knew Carrie. I'm like, everybody knows everybody in this town. I'm like, okay. Or they're related to somebody in this case. It's like you could play Kevin Bacon, that Kevin Bacon game with this, what is it, 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Anyway, 3 degrees of Karen Reed, or John, no, it'd be John O'Keefe. 3 degrees of John O'Keefe. Anyway, whatever, I digress. So he said he wasn't really friendly with Carrie Roberts, but Carrie would arrange, she planned this block party every year, and they have a Facebook page, and she advertised on the Facebook page that she wanted someone to bring a fire truck. So he brought a fire truck every year so the kids could see the fire truck. But they had an order to pick up the defendant, take her to the hospital. They take her to the same hospital, bring her in, and a nurse comes in, and they take her to where they have a room for these psychiatric patients in the emergency room. She goes in this room. The nurse tells her, he kept calling it a Johnny. I haven't heard it called a Johnny in years, but it's a gown. You put on a gown. We need a urinalysis, and she didn't want to do it. He says she was being uncooperative. So they weren't comfortable leaving Karen in the room with this nurse because there was no security around. There was, he said, I think it was change of shift. So they stayed for a little while, but there was some contention on cross-examination about whether or not she wasn't being cooperative because she was concerned about her husband. But then there was also on cross, it came out that she was on her period and she didn't have a tampon in, and she didn't, when you're under a psychiatric hold, you have to be observed at all times. And that means you don't go to the bathroom by yourself. So could that have been a reason? He's like, I don't know. But anyway, on the way, after he gets her in the ambulance, on the way, they have a conversation. And she says to him, is there any chance my husband could still be alive after having been out in the snow for many hours without a jacket? So again, the cross-examination was how he said it different ways 3 years ago or whatever, in the multiple times, in front of the grand jury, in front of the previous trial, did you leave out this part? Did you leave out that part? Why are you saying that now? And he's like, I'm just telling you what she said, At one point she said, I can't take care of these kids. He's like, no, you've got a strong support system. I mean, look, Carrie Roberts went out to help you. Look for John. And she's like, Carrie Roberts. And he said she got snarky. And apparently he had never said that before. So on cross-examination, you never said that before, that she got snarky. And he hadn't. So, but, after she says this to him about, could he still be alive? And he thought, well, it's a hypothermia. He knew that they were working on John at the hospital, and they were working it as a hypothermia case. And he knows he's thinking in the back of his mind, well, there's other cases where people, have survived hypothermia. So he's giving her different examples of people that have survived hypothermia, just to kind of, I guess, give her hope. But anyway. So, here's the other thing. He went to school with Michael Proctor. Like, I'm telling you, everybody knows everybody or was related to everybody in this case. It's crazy. Oh, also at one point in the ambulance ride, Karen got on the phone with her dad. And she was asked what did dad say? Because he said he started to say what the dad said, but that's hearsay. So he wasn't allowed to say it. So that's the end of day 2 and part of day 1 for that last, the end of day 2 and part of day 3 for that last witness that I just recapped. So I still have 4 more hours of day 3 to recap for you, which I will do in an episode tomorrow. And then today is half a day. Monday is half a day. So I'm going to get you all caught up. I promise. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Bye.